What's going on, guys? Welcome back to United View. Hope everyone is doing very well, having a great Thursday. And the worst kept secret in football has now been made official. You would have seen with the title, you would have seen on the thumbnail, you would have seen all across social media, if you've been on social media in the last hour or so, because Manchester United have officially announced Ajax boss Erik ten Hag as the new permanent first team manager. I'm joined by James this afternoon to break it all down, give a bit of initial reaction and just try and, I don't know, look at some positivity maybe once for Manchester United. It's a change of pace, isn't it? Well, you never know. But let's get into the statement from Manchester United. Again, this was announced maybe about, nearly an hour ago now. Manchester United is delighted to announce the appointment of Erik ten Hag, or should I do it properly, James? I feel like I should. Erik ten Hag as Manchester United's not bad as the men's first team manager, subject to work visa requirements from the end of the season until June 2025, with the option to extend for a further year. Now, we've got some quotes from John Murtough, of course, football director of Manchester United, and Ten Hag himself. John Murtough has said, during the past 4 years at Ajax, Erik has proved himself to be one of the most exciting and successful coaches in Europe, renowned for his team's attractive, attacking football and commitment to youth. In our conversations with Erik leading up to this appointment, we were deeply impressed with his long-term vision for returning Manchester United to the level that we want to be competing at, and his drive and determination to achieve that. We wish Erik the best of luck as he focuses on achieving a successful end to the season at Ajax and look forward to welcoming him to Manchester United this summer. Now, Ten Hag himself has said, quote, "It's a great honor to be appointed manager of Manchester United. I am hugely excited by the challenge ahead. I know the history of this great club and the passion of the fans, and I'm absolutely determined to develop a team capable of delivering the success they deserve. It will be difficult to leave Ajax after these incredible years, and I can assure our fans my complete commitment and focus to bringing this season to a successful conclusion before I move to Manchester United." So those are the remarks of John Murtough and Erik ten Hag. James, what are your thoughts? Happy with that?
Yeah, excited, mate. Excited as you can be with Manchester United at the moment, right? It's positive news. I think it was the appointment that the majority of the fan base were behind. Definitely the majority of social media were behind. And from the club's posts, it looks like the club were behind it as well. Murtough spoke about the recruitment process over the past few weeks and how well it's gone and how impressed they've been. And I liked a lot of things about the statement, to be honest. I like the fact that, they spoke about Ten Hag's future and vision for the club and how he wanted like this long-term vision, which is very much what's needed at the club, right? We've tried the whole quick fix, proven winner thing. It hasn't really worked. So, yeah, excited for the future. It depends on a lot of things, obviously. It depends on how much power and responsibility he and his team actually get. But on the face of it, it's all very positive. And I'm just I was one that wanted this wrapped up sooner rather than later. So happy from that point of view.
Yeah, from my own perspective, it was quite a curious one because I wasn't sure. When you've got a manager that's still at a club and he's going to be coming at the end of the season, that's always a really delicate situation to do, especially when they are still competing for a trophy in the Eredivisie and it's a relatively tight title race. But I suppose you could have said, they could have just left at the end of the season. But at this point, it had basically already been announced anyway. Everyone knew. And it was getting silly. It was to the point of in press conferences, right? When they're asking him these questions, he's going, well, my focus is on this and all that kind of stuff. And he can't say anything. It's like, well, everyone in the room knows what's going on here. So you might as well just announce it. And look, some people are going to be saying, PR after the Liverpool game and PR before the Arsenal game and all that kind of stuff. This has been basically a thing that's been well known, I would argue, for the last 2 weeks, right? It's just a case of when it was going to be announced anyway. Now, the contract is 3 years plus an extra optional year, so 4 years in total. Will he see out that contract? do you think?
Well, that's $1 million question, isn't it? I think we all want him to see out the contract. I think we're all optimistic of him seeing out the contract. I think his vision, his style of play, his past experience with building Ajax teams from next to nothing, losing countless players and then being able to rebuild and bring through youth and blood youth is a positive, and it all is positive. However, and it is a big however, this fan base are pretty demanding of success pretty quickly. Now, my whole argument for Ten Hag over Pochettino for the majority of it was that the fan base are going to probably give Ten Hag more time and more support because they seem more behind the appointment. And that's what I hope happens. And you got to remember, like, people got on Ollie's back, even though Ollie was a club legend, and I know his coaching style and stuff, blah, blah, PE teacher, etc., isn't the same. But they got on his back when he lost cup finals, right? When he was quoted as like a bottle job manager. And all of a sudden, you've just seen Ten Hag lose a cup final. Like, it can happen. Good managers can lose cup finals. Yeah. So I just don't want to see a position where we get behind Ten Hag, but then a couple of bad results or a couple of bad performances or you know, these players that we probably will talk about that have the capability to throw coaches under the bus. Any of that happens, I don't want to hear anyone being like, listen, Ten Hag out, he's not the man, he's not this. Like, you have to give him time. But over the past 9 years post Ferguson, have we really given managers time? I remember Sir Alex doing the speech on the pitch in his final game.
Manager.
Yeah, and literally the next manager, he's the chosen one now. You've got to back him, you've got to give him time. It's going to be tough. And that's being asked by probably the biggest legend our football club has ever had. He was basically begging the fan base to give Moyes the support, and 9 months later, he's out of a job. So it's like the fan base are going to contribute a lot to how well Erik Ten Hag does at this football club, and I just hope that he gets as much time as he deserves.
It's interesting as well because a few friends of mine that aren't United fans and people that aren't United fans or just, you know, pundits, commentators, whatever you want to call them on social media, the reaction to this one has been quite interesting because obviously you've got United fans who are very optimistic. They think it's a good appointment and they hope it's the beginning of this rebuild, whatever. I hate using that word because I just, you know, but you know what I mean. But you do have these people that aren't United fans that are going, good luck, mate. You know, good luck. And that's my question, really. Look, Man United's always a big job. Whoever's been in it, even in, you know, when we weren't being successful in, say, like the 70s and 80s, we'd occasionally win an FA Cup and all that kind of stuff. It's always a big job because it's a big club. But just how big is that job right now? Let alone, like you said, the expectation of history and pressure, but then factor in this season, factor in the legitimate squad rebuild that has to go on, the players in, players out. Just how big is that job?
I think it's the biggest this job has probably been in my lifetime, maybe apart from when David Moyes took over just because of the Fergie factor, right? But in terms of the actual job needed in the football club and on the pitch, it's bigger. It's absolutely huge from top to bottom. And I hope Ten Hag is given the ability to affect a lot of that and not just what is happening on the pitch. The job is absolutely mammoth. Ranić talked about us being 6 years behind Liverpool. And I have mentioned this before, but Liverpool are improving. Man City are improving. So it's not just the fact that we're 6 years behind. We need to play catch up quicker than they're improving. And that's a very tough job. We thought Liverpool's dynasty kind of thing, mini dynasty, would come to an end with Salah, Mane and Firmino.
Yeah,
and all of a sudden, they're old. They're going to, as soon as they leave, they'll crumble, Klopp will leave. All of a sudden, they've replaced 2 out of the 3 of those already. And they're probably going to replace the third one with someone daft like Mbappe. And all of a sudden, you've got the front 3 for the next 10 years. We thought City would crumble when they lost Fernandinho. But it's like they signed his replacement like 2-3 years ago, and he's been moulded into a player that is going to step into his role. And it's just like those teams and the scouting networks are just very, very good at preparing for the future. So if Ten Hag comes in, and we saw the 2 chief scouts yesterday left, so if maybe someone like Paul Mitchell comes in, if Ranić stays around, if those guys, the 3 of them, are given the ability to build this team for the future, then we could see a hugely improved and revamped Manchester United. And that's what we all want. But we don't just want a couple of good performances papering over the cracks. Like, Manchester United has to be rebuilt from top to bottom. That's what we all need to see. And that job, not only for Erik Ten Hag, but everyone involved in the football club, is absolutely huge.
It does feel, from the outside looking in, it does feel like there's a shift going on here. You know what I mean? It does feel like it because, you know, obviously new manager, but then once you start seeing like, okay, the head of scouting and the head of global scouting, they're gone. And by all accounts, you've got people like John Murto from the inside sort of basically grabbing everything and ripping it up and going, no, it's not working. We'll start again. Ed Woodward's not there anymore. Obviously, Rich Darn was there. And again, that's the jury's out on that one. The results will determine how much of a success he is going to be going forward as a CEO. But there does feel like there is somewhat of a recognition of this just can't go on. What we've been doing can't go on. And I think I was really interested. You mentioned the Ranić comments because it was reported in the Telegraph this morning, wasn't it, that his remarks saying that United was 6 years behind Liverpool actually upset some people at the club who believe that fortunes can be changed much quicker than that. And my reaction when I saw that was, again, that's why it's so important to have Ralf Rangnick around to go, no. Yeah, no, it is 6 years, minimum 6 years, And again, and it doesn't just turn around. And that's why I think it's, we can be really happy about Erik ten Hag's appointment, and I am, but he doesn't, in my opinion, succeed at Manchester United unless that structure around him is correct. Because a great manager or a great coach can come into Manchester United, but without all of those support networks, like you said, almost one of the biggest successes at Liverpool and Man City isn't necessarily just the coach. It's the network and everything they've got around him is perfect. Absolutely perfect. And that's going to, I think, determine Erik ten Hag's success at Manchester United. Whether, like you said, whether that's Ralf Rangnick going, look, half of that Liverpool squad had players that I bought in the past, or I found in the past. And let's just add into that, Erling Haaland. Let's add into that Neuer. Let's add into that Upamecano. Let's add into that, whoever it may be, because the list goes on and on. Werner, on and on of the players that he's found. If there's anyone that should be like, okay, if there's anyone that knows how to build a scouting department, it's me. Okay, I'm going to go in there. That's going to be, I'll do that. Instead of being a consultant 6 days a month, I can focus on that. Let me and Paul Mitchell work on that. That could be the thing. And then I'd like Erik ten Hag and we can work together. That would be logic. Whether or not that happens, I don't know. Obviously, I'm being way too logical for Manchester United here. But,
it does seem like a shift. Time. Yeah, it does seem like a shift, to be honest, mate. I was looking on the Man United website before because they're very careful about what they report sometimes. And they did run the report on Ranić's comments saying that we probably need about 10 players. Like we are going to need like more than 3 or 4 players. And normally you just get vague comments reported, right? Like Ed Woodward saying, we can do things in football and in the transfer market that no other club can do. But they don't actually put a number on it. They don't put a transfer budget on it. They don't put a number of players on it. They don't put anything like that on it. All of a sudden there seems a shift. You talk about like footballing people in footballing positions. If we bring in someone like a Paul Mitchell, Ralf Rangnick, Erik ten Hag, people can hate on John Murtough. John Murtough's a footballing person, and I think it's been proven with this decision as well. So all of a sudden, we're starting to see footballing people in footballing positions making footballing decisions, and that's how you run a successful football club. From the outside looking in, obviously, I don't actually know how to run it. I'm just like what I've been told. That's generally how things work. So it does seem like a shift. The less power the Glazers have, the better. The more delegation they can do to Ten Hag, Ranić, anyone else that comes in and their team, the better. And listen, is this the beginning of a revolution for Manchester United? We don't know. But football is a better place when Manchester United are a big club. They're a huge club. They're a huge clique in football. They're a huge attraction. And maybe people like seeing their failure. I don't know. I certainly don't. I want to see them back at the top. And it's starting to get me a little bit positive, I'm hopping on that little Marcel bandwagon of thinking things could change here. Yeah.
But it's interesting that you say that because, and I don't speak for all United fans, obviously, but I do think that we're as a fan base, we're almost scarred a little bit, aren't we? Because we do see something like this and we go, that's positive. And you do see like the scouting department go, okay, that could be positive. And you do see, look, and like, again, people can say what they want about John Murtough, but his 2 appointments so far have essentially been Ralf Rangnick, which, whilst people can talk about management and all that kind of stuff, I think a lot, myself personally, I look at Ralf Rangnick and go, he could be one of the most invaluable things we have done in a really long time.
I agree.
And Erik ten Hag, they're not bad. They're not bad appointments. So there's room there to be optimistic. On the structural side, obviously, you look at the pitch, there's no reason to be optimistic at all. But I think as just a fan base, we're almost a little bit like good appointment, but there's still lots to go here. There's still lots to go. And realistically, from your point of view, because obviously you weren't on after the Liverpool game, it doesn't change anything from Tuesday, right? That doesn't hide that result, does it?
No. No, not at all. Like, the problems at the football club are massive. The problems on the pitch are probably the biggest problems at the football club at the moment. We're atrocious, mate. Atrocious. The reason I wasn't on the full-time view is because I didn't watch the match. That is the first Man United Liverpool match I've missed live since I was about 6 in like 28 years, mate. Honestly, I just couldn't bring myself to watch it. I had, frankly, more important things to do, which is crazy because I used to, like, when the fixtures came out in July or whatever, I used to look for Anfield away, and it was like the biggest day of the year, and I would rearrange and get rid of everything to go to that game or to watch that game. It was the single biggest day in the calendar. And now I was just like, oh, I can't bring myself to watch it. And even if I could, right, me and DJ were joking because we both didn't see it. We could have done the match reaction. You could have had us on and no one would have been any the wiser. Oh, Maguire made defensive mistakes, did he? Rashford was poor. There was no fight, no determination. We were 3-0 down and there was no bookings and one shot on target away at Anfield against your biggest rivals that are challenging for the league. I literally could have said that without watching the game. We all knew how it was going to pan out. All these people that were like, oh yeah, but you don't know what Man United are going to turn up. I told you again and again, we know exactly what Man United are going to turn up.
Yeah,
Ten Hag probably knows exactly what Man United are going to turn up. And
that discussion, I'm just not having it this season. That whole why, United could pull it out the bag, but we haven't.
Yeah.
So there is no bag. There is no pulling it out the bag. There is nothing.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen.
No, there's no rabbit in a hat. There's no nothing. Sorry, KG, but facts.
Yeah, exactly. Super chat from Shahil says, we need to let Ralph run the networking for players that fit the mold of Erik ten Hag's playing style. For once, we need to listen to football people. I would agree. Absolutely, Shahil. I think also as well, it's not just a case of in the summer, getting rid of these people that don't want to be at the club or are too old or aren't good enough. It's also about getting rid of players that don't fit to Erik ten Hag too, right? It's not just a case of, oh, he's not good enough, get rid of him. It's a case of actually, he's all right, but for how we're going to be playing going forward, it just don't work out. So I move on to Harry Maguire, which completely unrelated. I move on to Harry Maguire. How do you think, we spoke about before, how does Erik ten Hag stamp his authority? Because one of the first questions I'm positive he'll get asked in a Man United press conference will be, who's your captain? Yeah. Is that going to happen? Is Harry Maguire captain? How do you think he approaches that one?
I don't know, but I can't wait to find out. And when we were talking before about the fan base and whether they're going to support Ten Hag, that decision on the captaincy is going to come down. Like, that's going to have a big reflection on that. Because if we start next season, if we turn up in August and our first Premier League game is at Old Trafford and Harry Maguire's walking out the team, there's going to be some big questions of Ten Hag. I had a conversation with someone yesterday about Harry Maguire, right? I'm not of the opinion, and I'm going to get shot down for this in the comments, but I'm not of the opinion that Harry Maguire is an awful footballer. But for the way we want to play and the system, he's not good enough. He doesn't fit. Is he good enough to be a Manchester United captain? Not in a million years. Is he good enough to be a starter for Manchester United? On performances this season, no. But you can't say he wasn't good in Leicester in a back three. You can't say he wasn't good in England in the Euros when he's protected by Phillips, Rice, and he's got Pickford behind him. Like, he has the ability to be a decent player. But unfortunately, from the sample size we've seen of him at Manchester United, he shouldn't be in the team at the moment, and he definitely shouldn't be captain, and he is making mistake. So rant on Maguire out of the way. How does he come in and, wean everyone out? I've said for a while, I think Ten Hag's toughest job, it isn't motivating players, it isn't doing all that, it isn't even changing a style of play. It's figuring out which players he can trust, basically. And by trust, I don't necessarily mean trust on the pitch. I mean, like, trust to not throw him under the bus. Like, he can't go in and pick a team based on performances, right? Because if he does, some of these players are capable of putting out 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 performances, but then they'll put in 3, 4, 5, 2 out of 10 performances in a row. And that, when they can't be bothered and stuff. I'm thinking about your Bruno Fernandes's, your Luke Shaw's, your Harry, like, people that can put in the odd good performance, but then just go missing for ages. And it's like, he needs players that he can trust consistently to implement a system. And there's numbers being bandied around again today. Did someone report like 20 million if we miss out on the Champions League or something like that? I think I saw for a transfer budget. I'm not reading too much into that, but what I am aware of is that if we do want 10 players, that's not going to be 10 Declan Rices or 10 Harry Kanes, and we're not spending £900 million, right? So Ralph Rangnick, along with Erik Ten Hag, need to go and the new scouting system and try and find players that fit the mould. Cam has said it again and again, right? But we need to find players that fit a system, not just square pegs in round holes. Sick of being, like I've said it, sick of being the Harlem Globetrotters of the Premier League, sick of just opening a FIFA pack, getting the best player with the highest rating and putting him somewhere in the team. Go and get players that fit a system. If a player that's at Brighton fits your system, then go bring him in. If a player that's at Palace fits your system, go bring him in. We don't necessarily need to be signing superstars from Real Madrid, from Barcelona, from Juventus. That's not how this works. We need to scout players that fit a system that Ten Hag knows he can trust to deliver a performance and do a job week in, week out in the Premier League. And that's going to be a big job for him going forward.
Asher with a super chat says 10 plus signings by Ollie minus Ronnie, 2 players signed by Sir Alex, 4 players signed by Jose, academy players with no improvement, huge clear out required. I think that's the thing, isn't it? Is that United fans just want sweeping change at this point. They just want complete change. I think when it comes to playing staff, coaching staff, executives, directors, all of it, they just want, just change it all, start over again. And I think Erik Ten Hag, probably out of the last, say, 3 managers, has the easiest opportunity to take the captaincy off Harry Maguire, because it's not even necessarily could be reflective on Maguire. He can just say, I just want to go in a different direction. That's it, mate. It's not on you, mate. All that kind of stuff. But in reality, it is. It is. He's not good enough to be the Manchester United captain. The reports, I think Melissa Reddy from Sky Sports was reporting today that there are a lot of some United players don't feel he's good enough to be leading the back line. And that's the back line, let alone the team, the club, the squad. Yeah. And I think it's an easy win, I think, for Erik Ten Hag. I think it's an easy win. I think it serves many purposes. It stamps his authority on the squad because he shows the squad, look, I'm in charge. Before, people haven't made that kind of decision. I have. So that's the authority and control I have. I think it's a statement of intent to the fans of saying, look, this isn't the same as it was before. I'm not afraid to make big decisions, and we are changing. We are going in a different direction. So I think it's a quick win. And I think, again, in terms of like Harry Maguire, he can just say, I'm going in a different direction. Now, if he strips the captaincy of Harry Maguire and then doesn't play him as well, then he really means business. He really means business, because he's saying, look, you weren't good enough last season. And I wouldn't be surprised if he stays at the club, Maguire, in the summer and he gets like a pre-season. But then I honestly wouldn't be shocked if he's not starting games, because Ten Hag will be like, no, if you can't adapt. And I think a lot of players like that, the ones that do stay, if they can't fit and they don't adapt, we've heard those stories from Ajax or in the past of like, no, if they can't cut it, he just won't play you. Because like you said, if you don't fit the system, that's it. And he's almost coming in at, yes, a really difficult time because of the chaos and the uncertainty and how poor some of the players are, and certainly the attitude of some of those players. But there is mass outgoings, and, outgoings that are confirmed at this point because their contracts are ending. So he's almost getting almost as much of a blank slate as you'll probably ever get at Manchester United. And a lot of managers don't really get that, opportunity. So he is probably a bit radically different from what we've had previously. I know people say, well, we did possession under Louis van Gaal, but still that had echoes of the Sir Alex side, and also that had, the structure there. We talk about the structure was bad because you look at the recruitment, right? Yeah. So I think he's got as much of a blank slate as you probably get as a Manchester United manager, which could be a good thing or a bad thing, I suppose, as well. So when it comes to the captaincy, I would hope he makes that call, because I think it's a call that needs to be made. I'm not going to come out here and say, wow, Maguire, he could improve, whatever. I think we've seen what we've seen. He's older than people think as well. How old is he? 29? Something like that. So, and I'm with you. I'm not saying he's a bad defender. But for Man United level, and in terms of the system that we're going to be playing, I just don't think he fits anymore.
So I don't know what your answer was on this, Erik, but they put a poll up, right, on the United captain, because Marcel was clambering for Bruno, and they had Marcel, they had De Gea, they had Bruno, they had Ronaldo, and then they had other, right? And I didn't catch your opinion. Did you have an opinion on who you want to be captain? Or
that's the tough one. That's the really tough one. I said the other day that Roy Keane and Jamie Carragher did a really good thing for Lad Bible, was that agree-disagree thing. And they were saying about, Roy Keane, greatest Premier League captain of all time, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. The issue is with United, isn't it, is that it should be an obvious answer as to who should be the captain, but it's not. And the fact that it's not is a problem. Like when Roy Keane was the captain, if he wasn't playing, there were legitimately 2 or 3 other players in that squad which you go, oh yeah, they could easily be captain, whether it's like Beckham or whether it's Giggs,
Gary
or whether
Neville,
it's Gary Neville, whoever, Peter Schmeichel, anyone could have taken that armband, and you'd go, yeah, absolutely, they could be the permanent captain if they wanted to. United right now, I know people have an issue with goalkeepers being captain. I don't know why. I think it's just a weird thing. I think, look, with David De Gea, I think he's got tenure. He's been there. He's what the last remaining guy from the Ferguson era. That's not a bad thing, right? He's the one speaking to the media most of the time after the game as well. People can talk about distribution and all that kind of stuff, but I think he would be a contender. Obviously, Ronaldo would be a contender because he's Cristiano Ronaldo. He is a leader, and he's arguably the greatest player of all time. It's just the longevity there. That's the problem. Unless it was a situation whereby you said, look, Ronaldo, you're captain for this season. And then Erik Ten Hag's almost like, I'm giving myself a year to find out who's going to be the next captain of United. And that's a possibility as well. And obviously, look, people talk about Bruno. I have just my sort of, sometimes you watch Bruno, you just go, I'm not sure you can be a captain. And like,
I think we're the same,
be like that.
Yeah, I think we have the same reservations about Bruno Fernandes. So let me pose this to you then. So if none of those are the obvious answer, would you be averse to making a marquee signing and making them captain? Or does that upset the apple cart too much?
Yeah, I think we tried that before. I mean, and look, certain players can kind of get away with it. Like say when Chelsea got like Thiago Silva, and then he's like the captain and whatever, and you go, well, it's Thiago Silva, and he's there. I think he has been there longer than people thought he was going to be there, but I don't know. I would be really remiss. I think that'd be a bad, and also as well that marquee signing. We don't know if we're going to make him this season, are we? So I think the best probably option would be to give it to Ronaldo for a season, and then in that season, Ten Hag's looking at like, okay, who's going to be the next captain, and then that's going to be the next long-term guy. But I think the biggest decision would be taking off Maguire. And that's just one thing he's got to do. That's just one thing he's got to do. That doesn't even involve, tactics or coaching this side or trying to improve their attitudes or anything like that. This was quite interesting as well. So when it was talking about his release clause, obviously the release clause was reported like €2 million, something like that.
Yeah,
but it was reported by The Athletic, David Ornstein and Laurie Whitwell, saying that Erik Ten Hag's release clause was actually not activated by Manchester United. Instead, it is understood that United and Ajax reached an agreement separate to the clause in his contract, which is curious. So you could be looking at a situation where actually United look almost in good faith. Said, look, we could have got him for like 2. I don't know, but they could have been like, actually, look, we'll give you a bit more just to, just to keep a bit of good faith there. Maybe it's the Van der Sar effect. But what do you make of that?
It could be either, mate. We could have given them more or could have given them less. We don't really know, right? I think it keeps the good bond between Manchester United and Ajax that probably goes back a while. Ajax know their position in world football, right? They are a bit of a feeder club. Even though they have great history and stuff, they've spoken about it before. When players and managers want to move on, they don't really stand in their way. So I don't think it would be up to a club to necessarily go and like just stamp and throw a release clause at someone. They can just say, listen, we're interested in this person. It's become very clear throughout this whole process that Ten Hag is very interested in Manchester United. So I just think for the best of both parties, it was probably best that negotiations were done. And you didn't just have to say, oh, here's £2 million, we're taking your man. Especially when there's the rest of the season to play and they're fighting for titles. And that's obviously only going to enhance his reputation and do both teams favours. So yeah, it's a strange one. We won't know, to be honest. I don't think it will get reported whether it's more or less. We just didn't activate the release clause. Is what it is. I'm just happy, whether we did or not, that we've got our man and hopefully he's here for a long time. And can we please put a huge release clause on Ten Hag's head so that Real Madrid or someone else, if he does manage to turn us around, don't go and snap him off our hands.
I mean, look, it could possibly be less, I suppose, as well. It could be Ajax just going, in reality, and which is, what's 2 million? Just go, mate. We're not going to stand in your way. That's a possibility too. Yeah. Frankly, a release clause of 2 million for a coach of his quality in this day and age is pretty crazy anyway, to be honest. Shahil says, how about Varane if he stays fully fit? Yeah, the only thing I would say, Shahil, is that is the biggest if in the world. And it's not even an if. We know he's not.
So this is the thing, like when you talked about, when I asked the question about someone coming into the club and getting the captaincy, Varane arrived before Ronaldo, right? And I would have quite happily seen the captaincy stripped off Maguire and given to Varane at that point. Like ridiculously would have been happy to see it. 4 Champions Leagues, World Cup. I think he's absolute class. He's been one of the best defenders of the last 10, 15 years. And he was my choice for captain at the beginning of the season, and probably was up until about Christmas. However, he's missed far too many games, and we do need a playing captain. I know you can look at Liverpool and say Henderson's captain and he doesn't play all the time. And there are teams around the world where it works. But with the state that Manchester United's in at the moment, I just feel like we need a leader on and off the pitch. And I don't think Varane could be enough of a leader on the pitch at the moment when he's not actually on the pitch.
And I think also when you look at, say, Liverpool, like you say, like Henderson, I can miss loads of games, but someone who doesn't is Van Dijk, and if he'll just be the captain.
Exactly. Or Alisson.
Exactly.
Or, anyone else,
Yeah, exactly. And I think I have my reservations with that whole, like you said, that style of recruitment now, because I feel like we've been burnt. I mean, you look at Schweinsteiger, Cavani, and Varane. To me, they're essentially 3 of the same signings in terms of super experienced guys that we signed for, relatively either on a free or a real small amount of money.
Yeah.
We were super happy when we signed them because we went, look at this player we're getting, and their clubs. Well, Real Madrid was slightly different with Varane. They would have probably wanted to keep him, but obviously Cavani was on a free transfer. It was reported that he might even consider retire before he came to us.
You could add in Schweinsteiger as well.
Yeah, Schweinsteiger, we were happy that Bayern was happy to see him go. And we're like, oh, it's unbelievable. But there's a reason. There is always a reason. And those people, look, if you're a really successful club that's winning titles, you can carry those people that play half a season. But if you're in a position of United where you need some form of consistency, that's the problem. And look, Varane, he'll have a part to play absolutely next season. And I'm sure Erik ten Hag will be happy for him to be there next season. But
mate, if we can find out...
He won't be naive enough. He won't be naive enough to think like, oh yeah, Varane's going to play every game next season.
Yeah, of course. I think if you could take like our scouts, like whoever they were, and get them to find the exact same players, but like 5 years earlier. Like imagine we signed this list of players like 5 years earlier, like Ibrahimovic, like Schweinsteiger, Falcao, like Di Maria, Varane, Ronaldo. Like you can go through our team and this massive list of players. Nemanja Matic, like 5 years ago, Nemanja Matic. Sanchez. 5 years. Like honestly, Alexis Sanchez. Like we get these players that it's almost like they're stuck in a time warp. And like 5 years ago, they would have been perfect. Absolutely perfect. But we just signed them towards the tail end of their careers. And unfortunately, like there's a reason that these clubs are selling, right? They don't have to sell. Real Madrid do not have to sell to Manchester United. So when you look at someone and think, hold on, Rafael Varane's one of their best players. Why are they selling him for £40 million to Manchester United, a club that they don't have a great relationship with because we mess them around over De Gea and the fax machine and stuff? Why are they selling him? There has to be a reason. And when you dig a little deeper and you do your research, you're right, that's what it was. Okay, he's a bit injury prone. That's an issue.
What do you think then with Ten Hag expectations next season? What do you think those expectations are? Because I have a feeling that I've seen a lot of United fans saying like, yeah, I mean, if he gets 6th, I won't care. Or if he gets 7th next season, I won't care. And I've said several times, that's very easy to say right now. That's very easy because if we are losing games or whatever, then people will be like, but if you finish 6th next season, but you got to tell you what, we play some really good stuff sometimes, and we put a lot in every game. And I like this group of players. I didn't like the group of players last year. That's very different. So, what do you think the expectations are for him next season?
What are the odds on us winning the quad next season? No.
Well, I suppose actually, I could change that question. What do you think the expectations are from the fans versus what do you think the expectations are from the club?
I think the expectations from the club are probably going to be based around top 4, to be honest. They want to see a progression in a style of play like we do, but they are very financially driven. And for them, that means getting in the Champions League. And that will be a top priority for them. I'd be amazed if that wasn't in, not necessarily his terms and conditions, but if that wasn't in it, like, if that wasn't given to him as some kind of like, this is an aim, this is a target, I'd be very, very surprised. And from the fan base point of view, I think it's a little more lenient because they're very happy to have their man. So if you ask me, do we have to get Champions League like next season? Do we have to get top 4? For me, the answer is no. Obviously, I want top 4 next season. But what I want to see is a progression in the way that the football club is ran. I want to see a progression in the way that the football team play. I want to see a type and style of player that we go for in the transfer market. I want to see some form of coaching. I want to see some players that care and show up week in, week out and apply what the manager tells them to do. All this stuff I value over the final position in the league, because ultimately, if you get all that stuff in place, the position in the league takes care of itself, right? Like if we build to a place where we've got players that care and show passion and apply themselves and are tactically very good, then all of a sudden we'll find ourselves in the top 4. But that takes time. And I don't want to be in a position next season when we're 6th and I hear fans saying, "Oh, that's not good enough. Ollie finished 2nd and 3rd with this same group of players and blah, blah, blah." It's an absolute nonsense, mate. The same people that were clambering for Ollie to be sacked are the same people saying, "Ranić's no better, he's doing this, blah, blah, blah." It's like, just support the man who's in charge at the time, give them time and let them apply their style, whatever that is. Like Ranić was never really given a chance, right? Because the whole 4 treble 2 thing, the players were like, "No chance, we're not doing that." Yeah. If any players see Ten Hag come through the door and he wants to play like a 4-2-3-1, or he wants to play a 4-3-3 or whatever, and they say no, I'd be like, "Oh, great, mate. Carrington, your locker room's over there. Pick your stuff up. See you later." Like that's what I'd be like. "See you later, mate." Like you buy into this manager and his philosophy and his style, or you're out the door. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, you would hope that's the case. And I think that it's funny because some of the games recently, like Norwich, like Liverpool, I think when I was having discussions with some of my friends that, if anything, they just strengthened Ten Hag's hand. Because if Man United had any reservations about how much power they were going to give him, he could literally just point to the television and go, "That's why you need to give me all the power. Because whatever you're doing right now, whoever does have more power than a manager, it's not working. And it's not been working for a while." And again, you can talk about, but you finished 2nd last season. I don't know how.
No.
I don't know how. And that was in empty stadiums. And again, that probably goes into mentality issues there as well. Can't handle the pressure. So yeah, I think all of the stuff that's been happening recently, if anything, it's just strengthened Ten Hag's hand when it comes to that. Expectations for next season, I'm with you. Realistically, I think the board obviously will want top 4 because their point of view will be, we don't, like United have missed out on top 4 a couple of times over the last decade, but I don't think is it back-to-back seasons that's happened in terms of we've had 2 years out of the Champions League. It's always been one, get back in the next season, all that.
They've always spent heavy in the transfer market to get back in, right?
Exactly. So their big concern will be if it's 2 years out of the Champions League, and look at Arsenal. 2 years can turn into 5 or 6 very quickly.
Yeah.
Especially when the money does start to drop of not being in the Champions League. But then again, in a couple of years, it won't matter because UEFA will just put us in anyway. So who cares about finishing 4th in the league too?
History FC.
Yeah, exactly. But I agree with you. I think that if we did finish 5th or 6th next season, but there was significant improvement in terms of playing style, in terms of recruitment, if there was just a better feeling around the club, I think people would be like, "Yeah, okay, we'll take it over, finishing in the top 4 and all that kind of stuff." And I do hope that is the case. I do hope he gets time. I do hope that, like you said, that fans aren't too, I don't want to say demanding, because I think you always should be demanding of the club, but I think we need to be realistic. I think we have to be realistic, because I do think there are going to be points next season where it's really ugly. I do think there might be games next season where we lose 4-0 or something. You go,
I agree.
Like, what happened there? Because that happened with Pep. Like in his first season, they had a couple of games. I think it was Everton away. They lost 4-0.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it will happen next season, absolutely, and especially when we play some of those bigger sides, because I don't think Ten Hag will go to, say, the Etihad and go, "We're going to get everyone behind the ball." I think he'll go, "This is how we play."
Yeah.
Even if our players aren't good enough at doing it, this is how we play, and that might get ugly. Yeah, exactly. So I think we've got to be realistic about that, and there are going to be issues next season. Do you think this announcement has any bearing on the player performance on Saturday? Although we've been saying this about every game recently, right? Do you think it's going to have an effect on anything?
I don't know how many times you can ask me the same question, Owen. Is something that has happened going to have an impact on these players? No, They're brain dead. Nothing, like literally, nothing has an effect on these players. You can tell, like, how many times does it come out in the press conference? Ralph Rangnick, I told them not to play a high line. First goal, bam, straight through. Goal.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I told them to put on their DM hats because we're not playing with a DM. And then all of a sudden we have no midfield for the whole game. Like, these players do not listen. You would have thought before the Everton game there was murmurs of Ten Hag and stuff, and you thought, okay, we're going to be playing for our new manager. Want to impress him? Did we get a performance? No. Did we against Norwich? No. Did we last week? No. So it's like these players don't take anything like that into account, which is why it's a very difficult job for Ten Hag, because there's players that don't care there. I talk all the time about like professional pride. They have none. They have absolute none. Like, I've grown up in an era where Manchester United and Liverpool has been like shown to me to be the biggest rivalry of all time. Like, and then on Tuesday you look at it, and come 8 o'clock you're thinking, just show something, just show a little bit of fight, a little bit of passion. And I mentioned the stat before, but to be 3-0 down in the 85th minute and have no yellow cards and one shot on target, and you could say, oh yeah, but physicality doesn't matter and this doesn't matter and you just want passion merchants. It's like, no, you should be hurting at that point. You should really, really be hurting as much as we're hurting at that point. You should be annoyed. The Roy Keane interview was telling, right? Because he is probably one of the most angry people in the history of our decorated football club. For him to say, I'm not angry, I'm just upset, I'm just sad. Like, that speaks volumes about where the club's at, where the players are at. Like, they just don't perform. They don't apply anything. So are we going to get a reaction on Saturday? Come on, man. Throw me a new one. No.
Well, like you said, like when you get to the 85th minute against Liverpool, not only should you have yellow cards because it's a rival and it's a derby, but you should have yellow cards because if they're counter-attacking, you should be doing tactical fouls, pulling them to the ground, you know, but they can't even bother. They can't even bother to do that, you know, and that's the sad thing. It really does. Do you think, because you do hear this quite a lot when it comes to new managers, I used to hear a lot with Jose, whenever he'd take a job, immediately he's on the phone to some of these players, going, chatting to them and all that kind of stuff. Do you think Ten Hag will be doing that? And if so, which ones do you think he's going to be talking to?
Oh, not really thought about that. I'd be looking at the players that he thinks he can improve or he thinks has a future at Manchester United, right? So I'd be straight on the phone to Marcus Rashford. I really would. And this isn't because I think he's the future of Manchester United in terms of like he's going to be our number 9 or number 10 or whatever for years to come. I just think in terms of where his ability actually is and where his performance level actually is, the discrepancy between those 2 points is so big at the moment. So big. A lot of our players, like, I think we fall into the trap of thinking they're very good, but they're really not. Like, a lot of them, we look at them and we think, oh yeah, these players are world class. No, they're playing in a bang average team that's 5th in the Premier League, and they're made to look good by the fact that we're actually dross. Whereas, like, Rashford is obviously performing so bad, and his level is much better than that he could make a massive improvement. Other people that he could ring, I'd be ringing Maguire to say, can I have my armband back, please, pal? I've got someone else to give it to. I'd be ringing Ronaldo to obviously get his thoughts on things, because I mentioned you don't want to build a team around Cristiano Ronaldo, right? Because he's not going to be here. Ten Hag's contract is 3/4 years. Ronaldo won't be here for all those 3/4 years. So either giving him the captaincy or building a team around him isn't very sensible long term. It's not very visionary. But at the same time, you want someone like Cristiano Ronaldo on side. At the moment, he's the only hope, the only ray of light that Manchester United have. The only way we win football matches really is through Cristiano Ronaldo. So if you're a manager coming in, you don't want to go against him and his fans of the club. You don't want to go against him and his fans in social media and him and the people that idolise him in that team. So you want to get Ronaldo on side. And then I obviously want him to have good communication with all the youth prospects. I want him to find out whether Jimmy Garner's coming back off loan. I want him to find out if Ethan Laird's coming back off loan. I want him to promote and speak to Charlie McNeil and give him a chance in the first team squad. I think he can also speak to other lads, you know, Ahmad, who's been on loan, Shoretire in the youth to set up, Garnacho. There's numerous players that I think could come into the squad if we don't sign 10 players. But realistically, are we signing 10 or are we getting 3 or 4 back off loan? Martial, Donny, Garner, Laird, Ahmad, and then signing another 5. That could be an option. We don't know.
David Lee says, like, share, and subscribe. Yes, we've got nearly 800 people watching, so smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe. Bottom right-hand corner as well. We are over, I think it was 101K now as well.
Yeah, it's gone up.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's gone up.
100K, forget about it. It's in the past. We're moving on to the next one. Road to 102.
Next week. Yeah.
Exactly. For every 1K, we're building a new studio.
New studio, yeah. New room.
You mentioned Donny van der Beek there. Obviously, lots of people are going to be talking about him, considering that Ten Hag and Donny's relationship at Ajax. Do you think he gets a fair shake next season, finally? And I suppose not only do you think he gets a fair shake, but can he adapt to the Premier League? He's not been playing a lot at Everton either.
It's a very interesting question, mate. I've not been Van der Beek's biggest fan. Again, I get my fair share of critics for that. But from what I've seen of him, and admittedly that isn't enough, but from what I've seen him in at Manchester United and at Everton, I don't think he suits the Premier League, especially not for the way that these two teams play. What I will say is when I've seen him play, the 2 games I remember at Man United, right? I remember him playing against young boys in a midfield with Lingard and Mata, and I remember him playing against West Ham in a very similar midfield in the League Cup when we lost 1-0, and we didn't play well in the young boys game either. So what I will say is he's not been given a fair crack of the whip because he's never played with our first choice midfield. He's never really surrounded by the players that you want him to be surrounded by, that he can build up a link with, that he can build up a connection and a relationship with. And that's probably why he's not had a fair crack. I think if Ten Hag comes in and doesn't play him, then we finally got our answer on Donny van der Beek, right? Because it's not just one manager that's not played him. It's 2 managers now, and I wouldn't be surprised if Lampard isn't playing him soon either. So it's going to be 3 managers that potentially haven't seen him as the answer. And there's only so many times that you can see these top-class people in football look at a solution, and if they all give the same opinion, I say it about McTominay all the time, man. People hate on him. People say he's rubbish. There's a lot of world-class managers and players that speak very, very highly of Scott McTominay. So just because John462 from Twitter thinks that you can't string 2 passes together and shouldn't be a Manchester United player, there's a sir at the football club that I'm pretty sure knows a bit more about football than a lot of people on social media. And Sir Alex Ferguson seems to rate him. So there's obviously a football player in there. As a starting number 6, maybe not. As a starting number 8, maybe not. But there's something in there that he likes, right? So I'm looking forward to Donny getting his chance under Ten Hag. I think if he's going to succeed under any manager, it would be under Erik Ten Hag. And if we do play a specific way, then he could fit in. I do have a physicality issue. And yeah, you get things thrown around, but David Silva's not physical, Bernardo Silva's not physical, all these players, like, it gets thrown around, they're not physical. It's like, yes, you can afford 1 or 2 of them in your team. But if we have him in the team, and then we have Bruno in your team, and we have Sancho in the team, there's 3 people that aren't very physical, that all win part of challenges. So it's like all of a sudden you're lacking too much in that department. So you can afford to carry 1 or 2 players like that, but I don't think you can afford to carry many more, to be honest. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Daryl with the super chat says, Ten Hag is such a great manager, and I'm glad he's here to change the whole club. Hope Ralph stays. He's a legend.
Agreed.
Certainly hope that the structure improves there too. I think with Donny, he's obviously going to get a shot. There's no doubt he's going to get a shot under Erik Ten Hag. Like you said, I think if he's going to succeed under anyone, it would be under Erik Ten Hag. Ten Hag still talks about him in glowing terms, mentioned that he could be a 6, he could be an 8, he can be a 10. I think, like you said, if he doesn't get that string of games, and Ten Hag is not going to get it under anyone. I think at the moment he is injured for Everton, to be fair. And I remember, I think it was maybe on his home debut for Everton, he did play well. The thing is with Donny, it's just like we really don't know, because he legitimately, I don't think he's had 5 starts in a row or anything like that in terms of games under Manchester United. So we don't know. And I'm sure that if anything, Ten Hag will probably be looking at Donny as a bit of a comfort of going, well, at least there's one player there already who knows how I play. Like it's going to be, because it's going to be a challenge to get his vision, his philosophy across to some of these players. But he knows that there's at least one player there who knows how I think and how I'm going to play. So that's a start. If I'm some of the United players as well, I'm messaging Donny right now, going, what's he like? You know, what's he going to be looking for? How's he going to play? All that kind of stuff, because he'll know as well. So, and we spoke about people who that Ten Hag would call. There's no way he doesn't call Donny. You're all right with me, pal. Don't worry. Well, you're all right with me. Don't worry about it. So I do expect Donny to play. Again, I think he'll be a bit of a comfort for Ten Hag, but I wouldn't be shocked either if Ten Hag comes to the realization that, say, Pep did and Klopp did, and quite a few foreign managers have, Conte did, when they come over to the Premier League, of what I've done in the past can still work in the Premier League, but it needs adapting. It needs tweaking. It's not like, with Pep. Pep had a style of play that he played at Barca. It worked. He played it at Bayern. It worked to an extent. I mean, they won the Bundesliga, never won the Champions League, but it worked. Came to England and went, might need to change that just slightly. Might need to up the physicality of that slightly. Klopp was the same. Came to Liverpool, went, might need to just change that a little bit. My midfield needs to be even more physical, and even the press needs to be even more extreme than it was in the past. I wouldn't be shocked if Ten Hag comes to a similar conclusion. He's even spoke about Pep, I think, saying that Pep, had to figure out the physicality of the Premier League and all that kind of stuff. So I'm sure that he might play Donny, and then if he might be like, oh, maybe we do need to sort of tweak that a little bit. And again, that's my point of, I think that first season in the Premier League, it's not going to be all roses for United, because I think he's going to be learning as well, going, actually, there are probably some things I need to change here and I need to adapt. I was listening to an interview from Steve McLaren the other day. I didn't even know Steve McLaren had a podcast, by the way. Go listen. And he was sort of saying about, it made me laugh because I thought Steve McLaren was like, when he was at FC20, I'm not sure how much managing he was doing, because apparently he just asked Erik most of the time, going, Erik, what do we do? And he was saying like
Steve, we do this.
Yeah, exactly. He said apparently like mid-match, he went like, Erik, what should we do? And Erik was like, we just go man to man. He's like, what do you mean? He goes man to man formation. We just literally go man to man. He's like, you kidding me? But apparently he's very good at, adapting mid-match. But it's interesting as well, because when we were listening to Ajax and the guys from We Talk Ajax, that was one of their complaints, is that the system was almost too rigid and they weren't looking and they weren't good at adapting mid-match. So all of that's just going to be absolutely fascinating. Finally, what players do you think he looks at and he just goes, nope, I know they can't do it? A bit like Pep with Joe Hart, when he looked at him, had a preseason, went, no, it's not working out.
You know what? It's funny you asked that, because this is literally what I was just thinking about. I was thinking about the fan base and the reaction on the first game of the season, because realistically, I'm going to list a fair few number of players, and some of these are going to start that first game, right? And, we seem to have this idea that Ten Hag won't like any of these players, and we just don't know. So I'll label a few, like I'll say Wan-Bissaka, Dalot, Shaw, Telles, Maguire, McTominay, Fred, Rashford, right? Of those, all have been labelled as not technically good enough, not good enough on the ball, wouldn't fit in a Ten Hag team, can't pass and move, no football intelligence, all that kind of thing. So those are the players that you look at and you think, oh, okay, maybe they're going to struggle in a Ten Hag team. But then it's like, well, who does it leave you with? It leaves you with no fullbacks for a start. So someone's going to have to play. And then Marcel talks about De Gea and his distribution. He's probably going to have to play. Then you've got centre-backs. You can take Maguire out, but then you play Lindelof, and who else? Bailly's distribution isn't the best. So who else do you play? Lindelof and Varane? Is Varane going to be fit? We don't know. If you get rid of McTominay and Fred from the midfield, who do you play? Do you play Matic? I think people just think he comes in and he plays Matic, Bruno and Donny, and it just all of a sudden works or something. Or we sign new players. And I'm like, I just don't see. People have this pipe dream of what Ten Hag's going to look like. And I think realistically, the first season is going to be a struggle. It's going to be a lot of learning on the job. If we do sign up to 10 players, bedding 10 players in a team with a load of toxic people that are there already is going to be a hell of a job. So the people I really think will struggle, I think unless Wan-Bissaka improves his ability on the ball, I think he will struggle. The rest of them, I think have probably got all of them have probably got a chance of being in that team on the first thing. Like your Luke Shaws, your Harry Maguires, your McTominays, your Freds. I think they've all got, and Rashford if he improves his form, I think they've all got a shout of being in that starting 11 next season. It very much depends on players we sign. It depends on the pre-season they have under Ten Hag, what system he wants to play. So yeah, I wouldn't be writing off many players as other channels and other people seem to be doing, like, oh, well, that's McTominay out the door, that's him out the door. I'm like, you don't know. You really don't know. You wouldn't have had certain players as pet players, but then all of a sudden it's like they come in and it's like, oh no, like Kyle Walker is a pet player. John Stones isn't. Like, you wouldn't have had these people like necessarily lined up with that manager and his philosophy. So it's not as black and white as people say sometimes, I don't think. So I'll throw it back at you. Anyone that you think doesn't fit? How's that fence?
That is no. There are lots of players. I think you're right. Wan-Bissaka is definitely one. We don't have a very technical squad. Let's be honest.
No.
I do agree with you that I think more players will get a chance than we think. I do think Maguire will get an opportunity. I really do think he'll get a shot. I don't think he'll be able to adapt though. But I think he will get an opportunity. It's difficult to say with the midfield because we legitimately don't know what our midfield is going to be next season because Matic is going, Pogba's going. I'm with you that I think he'll actually really like people like McTominay and Fred. I think people can slag him off and say what they want, but I think another manager will come in and say, actually, no, I like them.
I think one of them will start. I really do think one of them will start the first game of the season, and people will kick off about it.
Yeah. I would think. I don't know. I do look at someone like maybe Marcus Rashford and go, you might have to adapt a little bit there. And I don't know because I just don't think we saw a lot of development from Marcus Rashford in his early career for 2 or 3 years. And it just feels like maybe since since maybe 2018, it's just stopped. There has not been any development or change to his game since. And I think he might struggle to adapt. But again, I think he'll get a chance. I think that, again, the clear out, it's funny because the people that are leaving, we know the people that are going to be leaving, right? We know it's going to be Pogba. We know it's going to be Matic. We know it's going to be Cavani. We know it's going to be Mata. We know it's going to be either Jones or Bailly. Like, we know all these people are going to be going out. We know it's probably going to be Henderson. I know people want to talk and like to talk about David De Gea. Can he, is he going to struggle under Ten Hag and his distribution, all that kind of stuff? David De Gea will not be going anywhere next season.
I'll be amazed.
He won't. I wouldn't be shocked if Ten Hag does have these different demands of him and he might struggle under it. Like, when Unai Emery came into Arsenal and Petr Cech it was almost ugly at points. I wouldn't be shocked if that is the case with De Gea. I mean, people were sort of mocking him on social media the other day because in the Liverpool game he had an open pass to Maguire.
Kicked it the other way out for a throw.
That was like, terrible pass. I'm like, actually, mate,
great
that was a great pass.
Great decision. Saw where the danger was and just completely averted it. I think if you've got if they're going to sign 10 players and they've got a budget of 400-500 million, then yes, you can potentially look at the De Gea thing as something you may want to address. But realistically, it's going to be closer to 100 to 200 million and 4 or 5 positions. So De Gea doesn't even come into the discussion for me. He's not one of the 4 or 5 that need addressing in that scenario at all.
Yeah, I agree. Lil Yo-Yo says, I reckon Ten Hag will love McTominay.
I agree.
I do. I think, again, I think a lot of... it's funny, isn't it? And I'm cautious to say it because it's pretty much what Harry Maguire said about himself the other day of, well, a couple of managers have been picking me, so I can't be all that bad. You go, slightly different situation there. But I do agree. I think it's no coincidence that Ralph's come in and several times in the last couple of games, Ralph has said, oh, if only we had Fred or McTominay. I mean, McTominay was on the bench against Liverpool, so I wouldn't be shocked if he starts Saturday, even though he's not fully fit. Yeah, 100%. So that's the big news, guys. Erik Ten Hag officially announced as Manchester United's next permanent first-team manager. Of course, he's not going to be starting until the summer after his season's wrapped up with Ajax. Appreciate you joining me, James, this afternoon. Flex is going to be back this evening at 6 p.m. It's the new time, 6 p.m. It's official. Yeah. Flex said it yesterday, which means it's official until it's not official. At the weekends, I know the full view is always at 7. But in the week, it's always going to be 6 p.m. in the evening, guys. So Flex will be back at 6 p.m. with something very exciting as the game against Arsenal approaches at the weekends. A little tease there, just a little teasers for it out there. So keep an eye out for that. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. We're out of here. Peace.